Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to AUKS 7, where today I'm counting down my personal list of the top 7 underrated Queen songs. Now going into this list I have one rule, and that is that no song on a greatest hits album can be an underrated song. My opinion is if it's good enough to be on a greatest hits album, of which there are 3 in the Queen history, then it can't be underrated. It's Laid is a real rocker. It's driven by that guitar sound and really is a good representation of the raw rock sound that went with the News of the World album. It made a return to the live set with the recent Queen and Adam Lambert tours, but was unfortunately not around for very long. The band scrapped the song from the live set list after they realised it was, I guess a bit too complex to play. But if you ask me, they were playing it pretty well on that tour. The Prophet song is a real classic Queen epic. It's the kind of song that Queen did really well on their first 4 albums. Clocking in at over 8 minutes long, it has to be one of, if not Queen's longest song. And yet it doesn't feel all that long when you listen to it. One of the things that Queen did so well on these earlier songs, particularly songs like Bohemian Rhapsody, Liar, and in the later years with Innuendo, they added enough variety into the songs to really make them feel fresh and new, and so an 8-minute song didn't feel anywhere near as long. It didn't feel like it dragged, or it wasn't just the same riff repeated over and over again like you'd hear some bands do. It's also crazy to think that this song, written by Brian May, came to him in a dream, which is pretty crazy. This whole song about a prophet and the potential end of the world and all this kind of stuff and spreading a message and all this sort of thing, pretty crazy to have in a dream. March of the Black Queen is another epic. Written by Freddie Mercury from the Queen 2 album, it's seen by many as a possible precursor to Bohemian Rhapsody, and you can kind of see all those elements within the song. It's really interesting to listen to this song with that idea in mind, seeing how Freddie's creativity built over time, and how he was able to start out with a song like March of the Black Queen and eventually get to Bohemian Rhapsody. Don't you hear my call, though you're many years away? Don't you hear me? 39 from the Night at the Opera album is another Brian May written song, and another one that proves that Brian May probably could have been some kind of science fiction writer. This song tells the story of astronauts who go on a trip into space, and what feels like a year to them has actually been 100 years back on Earth, so they return to find a world that's completely different to the one they left, and the people they loved are long gone. There's really 2 versions of 39. There's a studio version with Brian May on lead vocals, and then of course there's the live version where Freddie took lead vocals and the band played it in much more acoustic, stripped back sound. I couldn't tell you which one I like better, but I think they both complement each other really well, and it shows how good Queen were at being able to reimagine their songs for the live shows.
On such a breathless night as this, on my brow the lightest kiss, I walk alone.
White Queen from the Queen 2 album, and honestly if you're going to talk about underrated stuff, you might as well talk about the Queen 2 album as being one of the most underrated of all time. While later Queen albums like Night at the Opera, News of the World and The Game had more hit singles on them, Queen 2 is just a great all-round album, with some really underrated tracks on them, and White Queen is a great example of that. I particularly like the live version and how Freddie's piano really adds something to the live version that wasn't there in the album version. Spread Your Wings, and if we're going to talk about underrated songs and underrated albums, then we've got to talk about underrated members of the band, and that is John Deacon, one of the most underrated band members of any band in the history of rock and roll. John Deacon not only wrote this song, but he also wrote great hits, such as I Wanna Break Free, You're My Best Friend, and Another One Bites the Dust. He was really the hidden weapon in the Queen lineup. And you talk about underrated songs of his, Spread Your Wings is definitely that one, which hasn't received the recognition that a lot of those other hit songs have, but is still one of his greatest songs. Now I thought I'd squeeze in some honourable mentions, a few songs that I would have loved to put in the lineup but for whatever reason couldn't fit the criteria.
Much love will kill you, it will make your life alive. Yes, too much love will kill you. One by one, only the good die.
Songs like No One But You and Too Much Love Will Kill You I would have loved to put in the list, but because they were on Greatest Hits 3, I decided to put them aside and give some credit to some deeper cut songs. Now when you talk about Too Much Love Will Kill You, you could talk about either version. You could talk about the Queen version from Made in Heaven with Freddie on vocals, or you could talk about the Brian May solo version, the original version from Back to the Light. I honestly prefer the Queen version with Freddie on vocals. I think there's a real power that Freddie delivers to that song, but I know a lot of people like Brian May's version as well. I think again they complement each other really well. Action This Day is a song that I personally really like, particularly the live version. Much like the other Hot Space songs when they were brought to the stage, Queen decided to bring a much more rock sound to these, and it really works well. The funk sound isn't completely lost, it's still there, and it brings a nice kind of blend between the rock and the funk sound of the album. When you talk about the live version of Action This Day, you gotta give a shout out to that awesome keyboard solo. Just listen to any of the number of the concerts that are around on YouTube from the Hot Space tour, and you'll hear how great this keyboard solo was night in, night out. My number one pick is Scandal, and I know this could be a controversial pick, but you know what? I just love this song. I think there's a real sense of drama to it, and of course an emotion behind the song when you realise that Brian May was going through his own personal issues at the time, and of course there was a huge drama surrounding Freddie, and the press hounding him and the rest of the band about trying to find out the secrets about his HIV status. The message and the story of this song is still true, I think, to this day. You still see magazines and journalists and online media and all this kind of stuff saying whatever they can just to get people interested in what they're writing. And I think this song does a great job of conveying that emotion and that drama and how hard that really is for the people who are in the spotlight. So that's my list, guys. Let me know down in the comments below. I want to see your list for the top 7 underrated Queen songs. Remember, if you liked the video, to like, subscribe and share. And remember when you subscribe to hit that bell icon, because apparently you have to press 2 buttons now to subscribe to a channel, which doesn't make any sense, but that's how it works, so please do that. This video is from our second channel, AUKS After Dark, so if you want more videos like this, including a top 7 countdown of the greatest songs of all time, make sure you go over there and subscribe to that channel. Also on that channel you'll find a bunch of challenge videos where the 4 of us all go head to head in a bunch of different challenges.